Hey, good afternoon. Hope you're having a good day. So, the last few days we've been talking a lot about Jacob's wrestling and struggle with the angel. And it's an important topic and an important time for the Jewish people because, in fact, the name we carry, the children of Israel, the people of Israel, Eretz Israel, comes from the struggle that Jacob had with the angel. Because, as we know the story, Jacob ran away from Esau to be with his uncle, and then he's running away from his uncle, coming to confront his back to his brother 20 years later. His brother has a whole army, and he gets caught in the middle of the night, and he wrestles with an angel. But after the angel wrestles with him and injures him in the hip, he asks the angel for a blessing. And what does the angel say? What's your name? And he says, Jacob. He says, from now on, your name won't be Jacob, it'll be Israel. And from there, we get the name Israel. So there's got to be some connection between this story and what makes us as a nation and who we are. So it's not something to be taken lightly, and it's something to delve into the deeper esoteric meanings and hidden things that we learn in there. But first, a couple of questions. Firstly, what's going on over here? It says that Jacob was alone. Vayivasa Yaakov levadei. And a moment later, it says he wrestled with a person. If he was alone, then there was no one else there. Secondly, right afterwards, he's getting ready to confront Esau, and Esau has 400 people, and it's gonna be a war. But then he meets Esau, and suddenly they embrace, they hug. Thirdly, why does the angel ask him, "What's your name?" You don't know the guy's name, so why did you wrestle with him? You almost killed him. You injured his hip. You were fighting with him. If you don't know his name, why are you fighting with him? And the answer is that really the story of Jacob and the time that we became a nation has a much deeper significance. You see, the word Yaakov, Jacob, means to hold the heel. And there's two interpretations about how Jacob got that name. The first is that when Jacob was born, him and Esau were struggling who should come out of their mother's womb first. And although Esau came out first, Jacob was holding his heel. And Akev comes from the word heel. So he was holding him, and therefore he got the name Jacob. And the second reason is because he took the firstborn from him. But the rabbis say that really Jacob wasn't wrestling with another person. Jacob was left alone with himself. He was having an identity crisis. All his life, Jacob lived trying to be Esau, trying to be someone else. When he was born, he tried to pull Esau and come out first. Later on, he took his firstborn. He puts on his clothing. The whole time, he's trying to be someone else, not who he is. In fact, his own name represents that metaphor of being someone else. And each one of us in our life, we try to be something we're not. And finally, Jacob comes and he's alone in the night. He's struggling with his identity, struggling with who he is. He's in a moment of crisis and he wrestles with himself. Yes, he's alone, but he's wrestling with himself. He's trying to figure out who he is. And at that moment, he recognizes that the only way for his success is not to be Jacob anymore, not to be someone who's trying to fill someone else's shoes, who's trying to live like someone else. But his name gets changed to Yisrael, which means to be a sar, to be a leader, or Li Rosh, to be a head. Jacob realizes that the success of the Jewish people, the success of Jacob, the success and identity of who we are is not by being someone else, not by living in an identity crisis of who we are, but of recognizing, of finding that wrestling and struggling with that, and finding out who your true self is. And that's why right after that, that's the blessing he gives him. From now on, Jacob is going to be not Jacob anymore. He's not going to try to be someone else, but he's going to be his best self. And that's why we got the name the Jewish people. Because isn't that who we are? All our life, all the time, we're struggling. We're wrestling with our identity. The Jews are in an identity crisis. We try to be Esau. We try to dress like Esau. We try to live like Esau. We try to celebrate their holidays. We try to do everything like Esau. Instead of and that doesn't bode well from everyone. Just like in the real story, Esau was felt threatened by Jacob, and Jacob wasn't happy because he wasn't who he was. And the same thing is in our lives. We try to be someone else. We try to be something else. Are we going to be like the guy next door to us? How can we be more American than the American, yet we don't realize that the greatest blessing and success for a Jew is to be himself, to be Yisrael, to be Israel, to be a leader, to be ahead, not to look back at someone else and try to be like someone else. And the same things with anti-Semitism. Some people say, you know what, Rabbi, you know why we have anti-Semitism? Because we don't blend in. We're so different. If only we would be like the Gentiles. If only we would act like them, then they wouldn't hate us. They're forgetting what happened in Germany. They're forgetting what happened through our ages. We don't decrease anti-Semitism by being like Jacob. We decrease anti-Semitism by being true to who we are, by being Israel, by being a leader, by being our true identity of what God brought us to the nation for, to be a light upon the nation, to be a light on the world of good, of spirituality, of holiness. And that's the story of Jacob wrestling. And that's how we get our name as the Jewish people from that moment. Because we have that same identity crisis that Jacob had. And just as Jacob only gets his blessing when he finally emerges as his true self, as Yisrael, the same is true with us as the Jewish people living in exile or living in Israel. We have our identity crisis and we have to find who we are. My friends, have a good day. We're still in the middle of our campaign. We have 10 hours left, I think. If you're able to join, we would greatly appreciate your kindness and your generosity. Those that have joined, thank you very much. And hopefully I'll see you again tomorrow. Have a great day.